Hi, everyone. I'm Michael Mallard. I first met Grant as a freshman at Southwest, and after floundering around for a full semester, not knowing who I was, Grant walked up to me and said, "Hey, let's be roommates and move to Falls Hall." It wasn't a question, it was more of a, that's just what we're going to do. I have some more readings here from our friends that couldn't make it today. This first one's from Dustin Ingram. "Celebrate we will, because life is short, but sweet for certain." That song lyric has always made me think of Grant, and now it definitely will for the rest of my life. I know we are all on our own emotional roller coasters, but it sure does put me at peace to think about the positive, joyous things about Grant, like his smile, his laugh, the way he played the drums on his dashboard, his gentle, love-filled eyes, and of course, the all-encompassing Grant hug. Then again, I can't always remain at peace because I'm selfish. I just want one more Grant hug. I want his voice to say, "I love you, brother," one more time. But I can't have those things. But what I can have is his warm, passionate love inside my heart forever. And as hard as it is to say this, that's enough for me. It was always enough, and it will always be enough. Sharon Aben wrote, "As I look back on the many memories I have of Grant, I keep coming back to those early days at Falls Hall when we spent a lot of time driving. It seems like we were always piling into that Jeep to go see stars on Mount Baldy and Wimberley, to hang out at Browntown, to climb the Wonderworld Tower, or to visit friends in Bedford, or just to listen to music. I am sure that many of my fellow passengers remember the rules of the road according to Grant. Don't spill. The music will be played at full volume. And perhaps most importantly, when food is ordered from a drive-thru, no one is allowed to open the bag until the destination is reached." Grant had pretty strong opinions about how the driver, however, should receive hot French fries from over his shoulder. Even to this day, I still feel a little defiant when I eat French fries in the car. There are many friendships that developed with Grant at the wheel. A big part of that was because Grant was the kind of person that could find friends wherever he went. I am so thankful that I got to be a part of his amazing tribe of friends. Even though our journeys took us to different places, there was a time that we got to enjoy the ride together, and I will always remember the friendships that we shared along the way. This next one's from Alex Smith. "The most vivid memory I have of Grant that's been replaying over and over in my mind these past couple of days has to do with the song The Boxer from Simon and Garfunkel. We were at a party at Sharon's apartment. It was Grant's birthday, the 20th, I think. And there's a group of us in the back room passing around the peace pipe. Mark Brinton had his acoustic guitar out, and he starts singing this song. I am just a poor boy, though my story's seldom told. I have squandered my resistance. Now, I didn't know the song, but Grant jumps in singing every word, and slowly everyone joins in where they're able. It's mostly the chorus. Lie, la, lie. It's at this moment where I felt that I got a small glimpse into Grant. Every utterance of the chorus, Grant would thump his fist into the wall, mimicking the actual cymbal crash in the song. I can still see him with his long hair pulled back in a ponytail, wearing his animal t-shirt, with this faraway look on his face. It was just a few minutes, the length of the song, but I still recall that moment like it happened yesterday. That's how I remember Grant, and I wish I had more of these moments with him. He was a good soul, and I will miss him." Catherine Lott Newman writes, "I have been reluctant in my reply because I don't want anyone to misunderstand my favorite memory of Grant. But after reading everyone else's posts, I know that this group wants real memories. I remember we were in some body alignment class, and Grant, he didn't want to sit up straight. He would in class. But when the professor took it as far as docking him points for seeing him in his truck slunched over, Grant defended himself. At some point, Grant was moved to tears while pleading his case, and it was It was never about slouching or grades or whatever else. Grant wanted to be Grant. We all felt the way that he was feeling, but Grant was truer to himself than anyone else in the room. It meant something to him, I think, because he always wanted to excel, and being docked in a class that is supposed to celebrate individuality, vision, and uniqueness was a true blow to him. I loved him that day, and I would like to celebrate anyone who lives life like that. To Grant. This last one I wrote, it took me a long time to find the words to say, because even standing up here now, it's hard to believe that we're really here. But I am so thankful that I get to remember Grant. I remember ghost hunting with baby powder over haunted railroad tracks in the back of his black Jeep. I remember way too much spandex and a shrimp costume in Ocarina Springs. I remember black lights and highlighter juice splattered all over our dorm room. I remember a crazy episode of Jenny Jones. I remember a laugh like no one else, and many other moments that I can't even remember if they were actually real or not. I know we all have memories that we share with and because of Grant Gambill. With a personality like his, I count myself lucky to have so many of those memories intertwined with the people out here right now. But I think that one thing I remember most about Grant is the look in his eyes when he talked about being in love. Whether he was talking about his family, his friends, or just a special lady, his face simply lit up in a way that you knew he was genuine. And I believe that is what embodied Grant. Love. He didn't love life or people or any one thing. He simply loved. We don't say it enough, and we all just let it slip by because we're just too busy. But today, I would like to remind us all, especially myself, to take just a moment to love. Thank you, Grant.
but really I'm not actually your friend, but I am. There's a picture opposite me of my primitive ancestry, which stood on rocky shores and kept the beaches shipwreck free. Though I respect that a lot, I'd be fired if that were my job. After killing Jason off and countless screaming Argonauts, new bird of friendliness, like guardian angels, it's always me. You can carry me out above the light switch, watches over you, make a little birdhouse
Hi, it's Al Yankovic, and I just wanted to send my love and condolences to Grant's friends and family.
Put down the chainsaw and listen to me. It's time for us to join in the fight. It's time to let your babies grow up to be cowboys. It's time to let the bedbugs fight. You better put all your eggs in one basket. You better count your chickens before they hatch. You better sell some wine before it's time. You better find yourself an itch to scratch.
You better squeeze all the Charmin you can when Mr. Whipple's not around. Stick your head in the microwave and get yourself a tan.
Talk with your mouth full. Bite the hand that feeds you. Bite on more than you can chew. What can you do? Dare to be stupid. Take some wooden nickels. Look for Mr. Goodbar. Get your mojo working now. I'll show you how. You can dare to be stupid. You can turn the other cheek. You can just give up the ship.
You can eat a bunch of sushi, then forget to leave a tip.
Dare to be stupid. Come on and dare to be stupid. It's so easy to do. Dare to be stupid. We're all waiting for you. Let's go. It's time to make a mountain out of a molehill. So can I have a volunteer? There's no more time for crying over spilled milk. Now it's time for crying in your beer. Settle down, raise a family, join the PTA. Buy some sensible shoes and a Chevrolet.
Now, folks, we're sad to report that one of our freelance television community has lost a friend and a colleague this week. Grant Gambill passed away unexpectedly at far too early an age of 34. He's survived by two beautiful daughters, Madison and Morgan, his mother Ann, brother Travis, and sister Allison. We will miss Grant's mischievous smile and zest for life and the contributions he made to our broadcasts. Rest in peace, Grant. You will be missed.
Again, on the subject of appropriateness and movie quotes, I don't think Grant would forgive me if, before I was about to give his eulogy, I didn't say, "Excuse me while I whip this out." Blazing Saddles, it's a classic. You guys can look that up. Grant was born in Bedford, 1979. From the minute he got the ability to talk, he started using it excessively. And every chance he got. Ann told me the story about when the show was on, and I believe someone else mentioned the theme song from this program, but when the phone would ring when he was a kid, she would have to race to the phone because if Grant got there first, he would pick it up and say, "Hi, I'm the greatest American hero." Then he would go on to tell him everything that was happening in the Gambill's life. "My daddy's at work and Travis is in kindergarten, but I'm home today because I'm not feeling so well, and Allie's just a baby, so she doesn't have to go to school yet," and so on and so forth, until Ann could take the phone away from him. He never lost that habit. She also told me a story when they went to get a family portrait at the Olin Mills when he was quite small, and underneath his nice suit that they had picked out for him for the photograph, he had his Superman underoos. And while she was working out the finances with the guy after the pictures were taken, she sees a streak out of the corner of her eye and goes to investigate because she hears laughing as well, and there is Grant running up and down the halls in his Superman underoos, having stripped away his suit and flying for everyone to see. And it's easy to look at that story and say, well, that's typical Grant, but it's actually not. Typical Grant would never put the suit on in the first place. He would have walked out the door in his Superman underoos. As a kid, him and Travis and Allison and a great group of friends put together some really remarkable creative endeavors, such as So Strange It's Deadly and Honorable Hog. If you have not seen these, please ask to do so when you're at the Gambill home later. They are pioneers in experimental filmmaking. One involves a search for ice cream treats and a boar's head that holds all the answers. I won't get into it. It's a lot. But the camaraderie and the shared purpose that they have, even as something as seemingly insignificant as a kid making a home movie, was unbelievable. The depth and the care and the time and the skill that they put in to these things. Travis was very much into special effects and took great delight in killing Grant in a variety of ways, including the ants that you've seen. And I believe at 14, they dressed Allison up in a sexy astronaut costume, if I'm not mistaken. To which Grant's line afterwards was, "Those NASA guys sure are lucky." He spent a lot of time on the swim team. All three of them did, as a matter of fact. State champs, if I'm not mistaken. Is that right? Absolutely. Just to goes to show that pretty much every single thing that Grant ever did, he dedicated himself to being the very best at, and more often than not, he was. In high school drama, with his inimitable partner Dylan, doing Rosencrantz and Guildenstern Are Dead, and a slew of other shows that they've told me, but I forgot to write down. But I know that he was beloved and talented. And on the drum line, his ability to drum was superhuman. And he approached those contests and performances as if they meant everything, because to him, they did. In fact, whatever he was doing at whatever moment meant everything. And so you hear about this creative and loud and funny and talented man, and it almost shocks you to realize that he also was a genius. Straight A's, got a full academic scholarship to college. Somehow he found the time between acting and driving around in his car and nearly killing the bearded gentleman whose name escapes me because of my grief. All these stories you've heard, he still found the time to be practically a perfect student. I asked his mom and his sister, when did he study? And they said he didn't. He could put his arm in a book and somehow just absorb all of the information. He only needed to hear anything once. He only needed to see a movie scene once. He only needed to hear a song once. And he had it. And not only did he know it, but he let it become a part of him. So he got a full scholarship to Southwest Texas, and this is where we get to the part where I met Grant. Now, at this point in the eulogy, I'm going to begin speaking in code on occasion. If you don't notice the code, great. Don't worry about it. The first time I met Grant was at a pledge event for Alpha Psi Omega, our theater fraternity. He was being what I would later learn was his usual grainy self, but someone had told me that he had had some Dr. Pepper before the event. I was 18 years old and came from an incredibly small town, and I didn't think it was appropriate for him to have Dr. Pepper right before a fraternity event, and I told him so. I kind of read him the riot act, actually. I was still at a point where I was a different person in different situations. I still cared about adapting myself to the impression that I could make. And Grant would eventually cure me of that. And here to me is where the true splendidness of Grant lies. He was always Grant. Without fail, he was always precisely himself. No matter what the occasion, Grant will be exactly Grant. And here's the great part, he could still fit in any of those situations. Any group of people, anywhere. He could go to a stranger's house for a party and be as comfortable as if he had been born in the living room. At work, in restaurants, dinners, weddings, it didn't matter. He delighted people around him, and he was welcoming, and he was welcomed. And not by adapting to the situation, not by changing his tone or altering his personality to fit the room, but just by continuing to be his loud, inappropriate, loving self. And I can honestly say I've never known anyone else who could do that. Our friendship was not immediate. It was actually a few months before we started spending any real time together. I started an improv troupe called Running with Scissors. He auditioned and was brilliant. No surprise. He joined the troupe, and I began to see what an incredible force he was. Not just funny, but so next level, brilliant funny. On stage, he was weird and intelligent and bizarre and perfect at it. I liked him more and more each day. And if you know anything about improv comedy, it's all about support and being there for the other people on stage. And I've performed with literally hundreds and hundreds of people, and there was no one better at support than Grant. When it came to us becoming close as usual, he's the one who took control and made it happen. I was in a pretty lousy relationship with a girl who wasn't terribly nice to me, and I'm hoping is not here. And even though he was still just a casual friend, Grant showed up at my apartment one night and knocked on my door. When he opened it, he handed me a Dr. Pepper and said, "Your girlfriend's a bitch. Let's have some Dr. Pepper and talk about it." And we did. We drove around the city of San Marcos talking about how to extricate from the situation and drinking Dr. Pepper. And I saw him practically every day for the rest of my time in San Marcos. Most of that time was spent driving around in his Jeep, sitting on my couch in Browntown, and drinking Dr. Pepper. Now, I feel I should mention, I struggled with whether or not I should mention Dr. Pepper at all. Again, that question of what is appropriate and what is not. But it was such a huge part of his life, and so much a part of the gift that he gave me. It's because of him that I too have incorporated Dr. Pepper as a vital and necessary part of my own life to this very day. In fact, back home in California, I have a license for medicinal Dr. Pepper. I'll give you a second for those of you who just got the code to whisper it to those who are still catching up. Anyway, like I said, when we weren't driving around in his Jeep, we were sitting in my trailer home, affectionately known as Browntown, watching movies or George Carlin stand-up specials. Now, anyone who knows Grant, like I've said, a hefty portion of any dialogue with him is movie quotes. Grant and his brother did it when he was younger. Dylan and other high school friends did it with him in his teen years, and I was proud to pick up the mantle when he came to college. We would constantly challenge each other to remember lines from movies word for word, and I have to admit he was far, far better than I. The same was true with George Carlin bits, and there is one that, in particular that I think is very fitting for today, if not appropriate. But I have literally heard him say this at least 100 times. Every time we would pass a cemetery on one of our epic drives, every single time. And he, of course, would do a perfect Carlin impression and nail every nuance and slight inflection variation to a T. And I'm fairly certain that Grant would be angry with me if I didn't say this. So here it goes. Saving all the dead people in one part of town? What kind of medieval bullshit is that? Plow those suckers up into the rivers and streams. We need the phosphorus for farming. If we're going to talk about recycling, let's get serious. Thank heavens he was cremated. You never had to wonder if Grant was home when he pulled up to his apartment, whether his truck was there or not. Here's a phrase that that has never been said by anyone in the history of time. Is Grant here? If he was inside, you could hear him from the moment you stepped out of your car in the parking lot. Either his music was loud, a movie was turned up, or his laugh was raining down from the windows. Now, I left school and just became a visitor to campus before he was in The Wizard of Oz, where he played the Cowardly Lion. And although that amazing head of hair made him an aesthetical match, it really was an amazing piece of acting on his part, because he was so opposite of that character, at least for most of the show. He was not a meek soul pretending to be strong. He was ferocious. He was fearless. He lived without caution. He loved without caution, occasionally to his detriment, but always without reservation or apology. And of course, it is finally revealed at the end of that show that the lion had courage all along. But in real life, it didn't take a denouement for us to know how fearless Grant was. And thanks to you for using that word earlier, because I was going to say denouement. So the rest of his time in college, Grant was at his perfect place in the universe. I cannot imagine a man fitting better into any circumstances. And for another movie quote, it brings me to mind The Big Lebowski. I only mention it because sometimes there's a man. I won't say a hero, because what's a hero? But sometimes there's a man, and I'm talking about the dude here. Sometimes there's a man, well, he's the man for his time and place. He fits right in there. And that's the dude. And after school, he went to work, a job that he had been doing since his teenage years, working with Travis and Allie and Bubba, God rest his soul. And he saw that work as a gift. He was thankful for the ability to have that job. My father pointed out to me how fitting it is that part of his job was to literally add color to people's lives. It's what he did for all of us even when we weren't watching TV. And he did it for millions at home. To look at him, you would never realize the massive global scale of the productions that they were broadcasting. He took it in an effortless stride because to him it was just going to work. And he was great at it. But not as great as he was at being a father. Emily and Grant made two beautiful, wonderful, thoughtful, intelligent, precocious children that gave him a level of joy that I had never seen. And I have seen a lot of levels of joy on Grant, but this one was the most. He doted on his kids. And in this past year, he was the happiest man that I knew. He loved Meg. He loved Madison. He loved Morgan. He loved his job. He loved his family. He loved his place in the world. It is not strange to see love exuding from Grant or to see those returning it to him. But at this time in his life, he was bathing in it. He was soaking it up. And it was all around him. His last weekend was spent at my wedding. And everyone of my family that had known him, my stepmother in particular, that had helped him through some difficult times, was so pleased to see that giant Grant smile back on his face and that bounce in his step and those bear hugs being handed out. At one point, my stepmother, I'm not even kidding, literally said to me, yeah, the service was beautiful, but isn't Grant's look great? I feel a little guilt that I had that experience and that I had that time to hug him, to tell him I love him, and to be there beside him in those final days. I feel as if I've taken that away from you, but I will deal with that guilt because I also cherish that moment. I don't know if this is entirely true, but my brother gave me a lot of comfort when he says, you know, Brett, if Grant knew that he had one day left on this earth, he'd want to be with you at a really good party. And so we gave him that. Now, one of the things Grant and I spent a lot of time talking about is the afterlife. Not obsessively, but sometimes things get deep when you've had a lot of Dr. Pepper. We would talk about whether or not there was a God or a heaven. We would talk about energy being released into the universe, literally becoming one with everything. We talked about which actress's underpants we would like to be reincarnated as. I believe Wild Things had just come out when we had that discussion, so he said Denise Richards. I was a Nev Campbell guy. It's what made us a great team. Anyway, despite all those discussions, the truth is we have no idea what's out there. We can have faith, and we can have hope. Hell, we can even believe. But we don't know. We don't know if Grant is smiling down on us or if he is all around us. But there is no doubt, no question that he is inside us. So let us promise each other here today that we will keep Grant alive, not just by remembering or talking about him, not some ethereal notion, but truly alive. And we can do this by permanently adopting the best parts of him. The next time you hug someone, really put your back into it. The next time you're getting off the phone with one of your friends, tell them that you love them. The next time you laugh, make sure they can hear you from the parking lot. I want to close with a quote from a man that we spent most of our time listening to, and that's Paul Simon. And as we have lost Grant and try hard to hang on to his love, there's only one verse or chapter or selection from this song that I could see fitting here. And I can see that losing love is like a window in your heart. And everybody sees that you're blown apart. And everybody feels the wind blow. Graceland. Graceland. I'm going to Graceland. Poor boys and pilgrims with families, we're all going to Graceland. And I may be obliged to defend every love and every ending, but maybe there's no obligations now. And maybe I have a reason to believe that we all will be received in Graceland. I'll see you there, buddy. I love you.
Thank you, Brett, and everyone for your very kind, thoughtful, and colorful words. I feel like we truly made something here that Grant would be proud of. This last song is it's a get up and celebrate kind of song. It's mournful, but it's happy. It's about Grant's passage on to Graceland. So if you feel the spirit, his spirit, any spirit, if you feel moved, feel free to clap, feel free to sing. Feel free to stand, laugh, cry, whatever you want to do. I just wanted to let everyone know that this is your opportunity if you need to make a joyful noise unto Grant. Okay, this is for you, Grantley. Well, you know that death came knocking on my grandpa's door, singing, "Come on, Grandpa, are you ready to go?" You know that Grandpa stooped down, buckled up his shoes, and he moved on down by the Jordan stream, and then he'd shout, knocking on my granny's door, singing, "Come on, Granny, ain't you ready to go?" You know my grandma stooped down, buckled up her shoes, and she moved on down by the Jordan stream, and then she'd shout, "Hallelujah, done my duty, got on my traveling shoes." Whoa, whoa. Knocking on my uncle's door, singing, "Come on, Uncle, ain't brother stooped down, buckled up his shoes, and he moved on down by that Jordan stream, and then he'd shout, hallelujah, done my duty, got all my traveling shoes. You know when death came knocking on my lover's door, singing, come on, lover, ain't you ready to go? You know your lover stooped down, he buckled up his shoes, and then he moved on down by that Jordan stream, and then he'd shout, hallelujah, done my duty, got all my traveling shoes. You know when death came knocking on my brother's door, singing, come on, brother, ain't you ready to go? You know my brother stooped down, buckled up his shoes, and he moved on down by the Jordan stream, and then he'd shout, hallelujah, done my duty, got all my traveling shoes. Whoa, whoa, you know when death came knocking on Bubba's front door, singing, come on, Greg, now ain't you ready to go? We know that Bubba stooped down, he buckled up his shoes, and he moved on down by the Jordan stream, and then he'd shout, hallelujah, done my duty, got all my traveling shoes. You know when death came knocking on Grant's front door, singing, come on, Grant, ain't you ready to go? You know that Grantley stooped down, buckled up his shoes, and he moved on down by that Jordan stream, and then he shout, hallelujah, got all my duty, got all my traveling shoes. Whoa, when death comes knocking on my front door, singing, come on, sister, ain't you ready to go? You know I'll stoop right down and buckle up my shoes, and I'll move on down by that Jordan stream, and then I'll shout, hallelujah, done my duty, got on my traveling shoes. We love you, Grant. We love you. Thank you so much, guys. We're going to have some brief reception out here. We're going to wait for the family to exit. If the pipes are ready, he can come and start, please. And there will be a reception back at the Gambill residence, 1416 Donna Lane. You're all welcome to join, continue telling stories, and celebrate. Thank you, guys, for making this wonderful for Grant.